we just let the spirit guide us, right? So let me see. Yeah, I think all of us, regardless of what the experience is, it doesn't matter if it was a head trauma from a falling off a bike, or if it was molestation or verbal abuse, or it does not matter what it was. It does not define who we are, and it doesn't dictate how we're going to respond to life for the remaining of our life. We get to decide that. At a certain point, we get to take accountability, but the first step is to acknowledge it. The first step is to know, who do you want to be?
Are you confident? Do you have consistency? How much conviction do you have? I'm Daniel Gomez, the Confidence Architect, a business strategist, keynote speaker, executive coach, and best-selling author. On the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, we will help you unlock confidence to create consistency and develop conviction. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence. Welcome to another episode of the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. This morning, I have a treat for everyone. It's a beautiful day here in San Antonio, and it's a beautiful day because we're alive. And I figured, what other way to celebrate life than a very, very dear friend of mine, Miss Jenny Landon. Jenny is an amazing woman. She was one of our powerful speakers. Actually, when she spoke last year at our women's conference, everybody wanted her to come back, and life happened in 2020. So our schedules kind of got turned upside down. But I want to welcome to the show right now, Miss Jenny Landon. Woo!
Hey, Daniel. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, good morning, Jenny. Thank you for coming to our show this morning. We're honored to have you here as a guest. And I always ask my guests to introduce themselves. So can you tell the world, who is Jenny Landon here on the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show?
So I would have to say that I am a woman of passion and conviction and heart. Like, for me, the most important things in my life are expressing love and being a fierce protector of those who I love.
Awesome. Well, it's been a while since I've seen you. I miss you so much. And we had a lot of great phone conversations the past couple of years. And it's amazing how God touched our hearts, right? I really see you as a dear friend and more as a family, right? Not just a friend, but a family. And, we share a lot of things in common. And one thing is that I tried to commit suicide and take my life when I was 18 years old. And a lot of people don't know that about me. And I know you've lost some loved ones due to that. So I want to kind of go over that today and on this episode and just kind of share our hearts. And I know you have you have a nonprofit called Growing Yourself Out of Darkness. Tell us a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So you and I got connected originally because of your story. And we instantly, I think the first time we spoke, we just, our hearts connected. But my story really started back in 1999 when I lost my dad to suicide. And I was actually in college getting my degree in psychology. And I was completely blindsided. His death was not a reflection of who he was as an individual. And so I really poured myself, when I got back to school, I poured myself into trying to understand what happened to him. And so I went through years of healing and was fortunate to be exposed to many different methods of healing. And so about 15 years after I lost my dad, I actually received an email from a friend of mine who knew everything that I'd been through, not just in losing my dad, but also going through my own state of postpartum depression that then turned into being suicidal, even though at that point I was actually a trained crisis counselor and a public educator on suicide. And I think that the testimony there is that none of us are immune to this, right? It's really important that we're all paying attention to what is going on within our bodies and within ourselves and with the people we love. So yeah, about 15 years after I lost my dad, a friend of mine reached out to me and told me that she had two friends who had each lost a loved one to suicide that week. And she wanted to know if I would be willing to write them a letter of hope, letting them know that healing was possible. And that was such a tremendous honor for her to think of me in that light and to trust me to share such a message. And so about 3 weeks after her email, I called her and I said, I haven't forgotten you. I'm writing. I just don't know where to stop. And so I sent her what I was working on, and she called me back and she said, don't stop. And she said, you've got a message that needs to be heard. And so While I was working on it, I never really thought this is going to be a book. I'm set to write a book for people. But about 3 years after I started it, it became clear that this really was a message that needed to be heard and that it was going to be a published book. And the reason I started Growing Out of Darkness was, as someone who's lost someone that I love dearly to suicide, that is a pain that no one should ever have to experience. And yet so many of us do. And we feel so alone when it happens. And it doesn't matter if we're in a big city or a small town, it can be very isolating. And so I just knew that with this book, it was not something that I could make a profit off of. And it wasn't something I wanted to charge people so that they would know that they were supported and they were loved. And so I started the nonprofit in order to be able to donate these books to anyone in need.
Well, I love the fact that you have a giving heart. And I thought this was a great timely episode because right now people are going through a lot in our country and this world. Of course, they're talking about the second wave. And sometimes I think the news over exaggerates what's going on and they want to put fear in us. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people right now in our country are suffering from depression, hopelessness, and they don't have that sense of certainty is what I call it. They don't have that certainty in their life right now. And you bring a lot of wisdom in that because you've been in those areas of your life. So if somebody out there right now is really just kind of, thinking about taking their life, thinking about just ending it, because think about it. I got this when I was in prayer the other day, just how many people have lost their jobs and how many people their identity was in their jobs, right? Their title, their position was who they were. That was their identity because they knew nothing else. And since they lost their job, they're having trouble getting a new job or whatever it may be. So to them, they lost all hope, right? They're like, man, my life's over. And they really feel that way. And I understand because I felt that way myself. So if somebody right now is feeling helpless and hopeless, speak to that individual right now because I think you can give a great word of encouragement at this time, Jenny.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. I'm going to be very honest and tell you that while I have this organization and it's gone far bigger than just, donating books to individuals. It's really turned into sharing a message of wellness and really taking 10 steps back from your traditional suicide prevention approach and teaching people about how everything is connected and how the way we live truly matters. And with all of that being said, and with all of the experiences that I've had, and I feel like this is my work, I should be incredibly healthy and at the top of my game. And yet even I have struggled during this pandemic, being isolated, even though I have a family, although sometimes I'm ready to be separated from them. But I've gone through some dark days during this pandemic and had a couple really difficult situations that pushed me into a position where even I was having suicidal thoughts and really struggling. And so I can definitely speak to this. I think that one of the things that we need to do more than anything is be kind to ourselves, right? And it's not just about like, oh, you want to sleep in, sleep in. I'm not talking about that. I actually think waking up and having goals and setting an intention and accomplishing something, whether it's laundry or cleaning your kitchen or even setting the goal of I'm going to call this friend. We need those connections right now. It's really important that we are connecting with those that we love. And for me, one of the things that came to me when I was in a really dark place was that I started saying to myself these 3 sentences over and over again. And it is, I am at peace. I am capable. I am loved. And what's interesting is I've never actually been a fan of like the daily affirmation because
I love that. Do you mind saying that again? I think somebody needs to hear that for themselves right now. Say those 3 if you don't mind.
Yeah. So the 3 sentences that came to me while I was in prayer and meditation were, I am at peace. I am capable. I am loved. And for me, it spoke to, I think, the core of who I am. But I think I think everyone should find the statement that resonates deeply with them. But in all honesty, I've never been a fan of daily affirmations because I'm just like, these don't work. But I think it's because we're not taught to do them correctly. I think most people have this idea that daily affirmations is where you get up look in the mirror, you say your affirmation, and you go on with your day. And then you go, get ready for bed at night. You see your affirmation, you say it again, you go to bed. No, we need to hear that affirmation all day, every day. And especially when like the instant we feel ourselves starting to crumble, starting to doubt our abilities, starting to question who we are in this world and who we belong to and how we can help others, that is the moment that you stop what you're doing and you say, I am at peace. I am capable. I am loved.
I love that. The one that sticks out to me is I am capable. I think we fall into that depression because we don't feel that we're capable. We don't feel that we have the strength. We don't have the wisdom. We don't have what it takes to continue. And I went through that. And a lot of people don't know this about me, but there was a time in my life when I was let go of a position, a high position, where, I was making great money, running an organization, and me and the owner we didn't see eye to eye anymore. And I was dismissed. And my identity was in that job. So I can relate with that. And I didn't feel at peace, and I didn't feel capable because I felt like I was stripped of who I was. I was like, how are you going to let me, how are you going to let me go? Right. Like we don't agree on things, but it's like, but my identity was in that title. Yeah. And I think for like 3 days, I just kind of was lost and I didn't feel capable. Yeah. I didn't feel capable. And I think when you say that, when you say those to yourself, it just speaks to your soul. It speaks to your heart. And I agree with you. So I want to just throw this in there because I agree with you on the affirmations. A lot of times people don't put their heart and emotion into it. And you really need to say those emotions, like feel it, right? Like I am at peace. I am capable. I am loved. When you put your heart into it,
I have had moments where I am in tears, right? And if I'm being honest, I don't feel any of those things. I don't feel any of that. In that moment, I am at a complete loss, right? And so don't just think it. Don't just think these thoughts. I mean, yes, if you're in a public place and you need to quietly have it going through your head, fine. Take time every day to say it out loud. Hear your voice. Allow your body to hear that vibration and let it resonate through your entire core. And you keep saying it until you start to feel it. And, and I was saying to a friend of mine, these 3 lines came to me on a really important day. It was May 18th, and it was my dad's birthday. And leading up to his birthday, had a lot of anticipation that something big was going to happen that day. And I didn't know if it was going to be good or bad, but I could just feel this turmoil inside of me, like things were changing. And that morning I was just crying. I was in a really sad place. And which was interesting because it's been 21 years since I lost my dad. And it's been several years since the anniversary of his death or his birthday has caused me to be so emotional. I really have gotten to where I see those days as opportunities for something beautiful to happen. But that particular morning I woke up and I was really struggling. And I remember I was sitting in my office and my husband came in and was like, what is going on? And I said, I don't want to be here. And he goes, no, I know. Everybody wants to get out of their house. Everybody wants a break from being confined. And I go, no, I don't want to be here. I don't want to live this anymore. This is exhausting. And I just feel so beaten down. I can't breathe, And I actually was really fortunate because I ended up seeing a healer that day who specializes in a combination of Reiki, healing touch, and Native American healing modalities. And it was after I saw her that I was in a place of meditation that these 3 thoughts came to me. And I would say them over and over again. I mean, probably 100 times a day for that first week. And then it was really amazing because it was just I no longer felt like I had to say them, but I wanted to say them. And it just made me feel stronger. And it was from my core, right? It wasn't just this superficial, oh, I'm happy to be alive. No, it was from my core. I felt this strength and I really, truly felt at peace and capable and loved. So I encourage everyone, and again, maybe these 3 aren't yours.
Yeah. So what people don't realize is that what you're saying is that we have these, I call them tire tracks, right? Tractor tracks. Just imagine it rained here in San Antonio this morning. So a tractor goes over the mud That's how deep and just those tractor tracks are in our mind. Just think our mind has these tractor tracks like the mud, like the way we see once the mud dries, the water goes away. Those tractor tracks are thick, deep, and a regular car will get stuck. So in our mind, what you're saying is you have to say these affirmations over and over, and then you really start to feel it because it starts to go over those old thought patterns, and those tractor tracks represent thought patterns. And the more you say it with emotion, the more you say it, well, then you start developing new thought patterns, new tractor tracks, and your thinking changes. And you're right. And you start saying it, you feel good about yourself, and you say it because you want to feel even better. Mm-hmm. And I've seen so many of my clients that they start coming out of that depression, out of that anxiety, because they feel better. And the moment they start feeling a little bit better, then they stop doing what they did. And that's where I see a lot of them get stuck in those tracks because they're not doing what they used to do. Speak on that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think it's really easy for us to get stuck in patterns or even to tell ourselves this is who I am, right? And so, in fact, I have a new business partner that I've started working with, and he's brilliant. But we just spent a week together in Ohio, just like developing content and working on the programs we're developing. And he has these moments where he's like, well, this is just who I am. Like, this is my default. This is what I do. And I'm like, no, this is not who you are. You grew up behaving in a certain way, and you're now aware of it, and you can make the change. You can adjust because you're aware, right? And I've had to do that. I mean, I will tell you, I grew up one of 6 children, and I never felt like I belonged. I was a very unhappy, very frustrated and sad child. And I will back up and say that part of that did come from the fact that my mom's family was riddled with predators, and I was molested as a small child. And it really affected my development and really knowing who I am and am I worthy. And I had a lot of trust issues and fear issues. But somewhere along the way, I began to take ownership of my own behavior and to say, you know what? Yes, that happened to me, but that doesn't define who I am. And it doesn't get to dictate who I'm going to be. And I think the biggest thing for me when a lot changed was when I had children. And I started recognizing that they're picking up on my behaviors. I'm influencing who they could be. And it was really...
That was pretty powerful.
Say that again?
Because something happens to you doesn't define who you are. Say that one part again, because I think somebody out there, somebody needs to hear that, because sometimes because something happens to it doesn't define who we are. So speak on that.
Right.
Say that sentence if you don't mind.
Yeah, well, I'll try to, because sometimes it just comes out. You know that, Daniel. Like, we just let the spirit guide us, right? So let me see. Yeah, I think all of us, regardless of what the experience is, it doesn't matter if it was a head trauma from a falling off a bike, or if it was molestation or verbal abuse, or it does not matter what it was. It does not define who we are, and it doesn't dictate how we're going to respond to life for the remaining of our life. We get to decide that. At a certain point, we get to take accountability, but the first step is to acknowledge it. The first step is to know, who do you want to be? Right? Now, how are you going to achieve that?
I love that. This is a time in the episode where I tell my audience here on the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, you need to get a pen and paper and put pen to paper right now, because Jenny's dropping some wisdom right now. And the way you're going to learn is by taking notes. You got to take notes. Something magical happens when you put pen to paper. So right now, when you're listening to this on whether iTunes or Spotify, please take notes. It's only going to help you. I love what you said, Jenny. Man, boom, that was a bomb. That was wisdom right there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I've been really fortunate to have incredible people in my life who have opened my heart and my mind and really helped me to recognize in myself the good and the bad. Right. And that's where I even really struggle with calling it good or bad, because all of it makes who I am. And it's what we do with it. It's how we use it to impact our own situation as well as those around us. And I think when we can get out of the headspace of it's all about me, how is this going to help me? How is this going to benefit me? And start thinking about how is my behavior impacting the people I love? How is my behavior impacting the person walking down the street? Because I think it is vital that we are connecting with people beyond just our family and just our friends. If we are truly going to be a community that supports one another and gets over so much of the anxiety and hate and angst that's out there, it means we've got to start truly opening doors for others, smiling at people, making eye contact, being willing to say my behavior truly does impact the people in this space around me.
Yeah, and I think most of us, we try to fit in so much, and we try to fit in, and we try to fit in. And the thing is, we want to fit into every group that's out there. And I say that because that makes you depressed, because you're not going to fit in with every group out there. You're not going to fit in with every organization, with every whatever you're not. And you try to take that square peg and put it into that circle, and it doesn't work that way. And that's where you get depressed. You're seeking people's approval so much.
Right.
And they don't approve of you, and then you get depressed, and then it's just a vicious cycle where that's when the reason I changed the name of the group to Distinctive Syndicate was because we're all distinctive. Mm-hmm. And the moment you realize that you're unique, that you bring something to the table, and a lot of times it's that thing that makes us unique is what we're embarrassed about ourselves. When you express that and you release it into the world, into the universe, then it brings joy and happiness to you, because you're distinctive, you're unique. And when you realize that, you're not going to want to, you know what, I'm not going to fit into every social class. I'm not going to fit into every group, because I'm who I am. And I just love what you just said, because that's just so powerful. You're just, man, Jenny, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, there's a couple of thoughts that came to me while you were speaking. Actually, two things. I will be turning 42 this summer, and I would say that it's only been in the last 2 years that I've truly understood what it means to love myself. And
you're young, 42. I want to be 42 years old. I want to tell you my age, because then
we're all good, Daniel. Heart to heart, we're the same always, right? But for me, it's just how, again, this is my work. This is what I do. I want people to live a life they love. And so much of that has come from me really discovering what that means. And part of my journey in discovering that actually is I'm going to actually throw out another organization that I absolutely believe in, which is it's the Strengths Finder. I think it's Clifton Strengths Finder. There's a test that I did a few years ago that was done through our church. And the whole idea was for it to identify your talents, right? So if you don't know what Strengths Finder is, it is a test that you do that all of us have. I think it's 34 talents that we're born with, the same 34, but they show up in a different order. What was really interesting was when I got my results back and I looked at my top 5 talents, I went, no, this is wrong. Every single one of these are things that get me in trouble. Every single one of these things causes me pain. And as I went through the class and I started learning about it, what I realized was the reason these things were causing me pain was because I had never learned how to use them. They were my natural talent constantly trying to come out of me. And I was constantly blocking them because I didn't know how to use them. And I saw them as attributes of myself that were getting in the way of who I could be. And when I started to actually understand what my talents were and how to properly engage with them and use them, my life changed completely. And I tell people all the time, when they're going through a difficult situation, for instance, I have a friend right now who's going through a divorce, and he is an incredibly gentle soul. And when he and his soon-to-be ex-wife get into these arguments, and he will, fall into this, okay, I'm going to yell back at you, right? He's more upset with himself for his behavior than he is with her. And what I've told him is but that's because your natural tendency is to be a gentle, gentle soul. And when you go against that, it causes you so much pain. And so I think it's really important that we try to identify, again, who am I? what is my natural talent? What is my natural place to be in this world? And then
Well, I
own
love that.
that.
You said, who am I? So let's segue to a different.
Yeah.
So when you don't know who you are, this is what happens. You lose your confidence. And I think you can't win in life, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in speaking, whether it's in business, in any aspect of life, you're not going to win. If you can't win without confidence. You think about just sports. I don't know a baseball team, a basketball team, any team that's won without confidence. You need confidence to win in life.
Yeah.
So when is a time in your life that you lost your confidence, Jenny? And what did you learn about yourself that you regained it that you didn't even know you had, right? So when is the time that Jenny Landon lost her confidence, and what did she learn that she regained it? So talk about that a little bit if you don't.
2 days ago. Like, honestly. No, I'm serious. Like, I'm going to be the most real, authentic, like, this is life. Even when you are like, I got it all figured out, or everyone else thinks I have it all figured out, that's usually when I'm like, oh God, no, I don't. I'm a failure, right?
I love you for being real. Thank you for being genuine, man. That's what I love about you. You're just like a big bottle of compassion and reality, and that's what I love about you.
Oh, thank you. No, I think for me, I'm serious though. I drove to Ohio and back, and I arrived home on Tuesday. It was a 12-hour drive. I ate healthy snacks the whole day, but I didn't nourish my body. And then I was also out of my routine of really nourishing, like physically. I had not been doing my regular workouts. I had not been doing my normal meditation and Tai Chi. I was so focused on my work during that week that I wasn't taking care of myself. And by Wednesday night, I flipped out. I totally flipped out on my whole family. And I was like yelling, and I was being exactly who I don't want to be. Right. And the next morning, I sat down with my 2 daughters and I just said, I am so sorry for how I acted last night. And that is not who I want to be. I don't care how bad my situation is, how overwhelmed I am, how distraught I am. That's not how I want to respond. And I hope that you can forgive me.
So what made you lose your confidence then?
What happened was, like I said, I had not been taking care of myself for the week leading up to it. And I'm not going to say who it is, but again, on Wednesday, I really didn't get the nourishment that I know I need for my body. And my husband very kindly brought dinner home. And it ended up being a restaurant that I know I shouldn't, I love it, but I know I shouldn't eat it. My body doesn't respond well to it. And so I went from being like, I'm tired and I'm frustrated with some things to eating this meal. And within 10 minutes, I was very angry and I was explosive. And it was this like, I've been gone for a week and you're 16 and 13. And how have you two not figured out how to be responsible and clean up after yourselves? And the cleaning people are coming tomorrow, which means the house has to be clean for the cleaning people to come and clean. And I don't know, I totally lost it. And then I was like, I am a failure. I am a failure at being a mom. I'm a failure at being a wife. And now I'm a failure at this work because look at me. I can't even hold myself together and I'm a hypocrite and I'm telling everyone to love their lives and I don't love my life right now. And so I just like, it was a rabbit hole, right? I spiraled out of control. And then I kind of put myself in timeout. And I just put myself in my room and took a breath and recognized all the reasons I was falling apart. And this is really what I try to do with my work. And I think it's good that I experience it from time to time as a reminder.
I want to pause for a moment because I think you said a word that stood out, the H word, hypocrite.
Oh, yeah.
Too many of us, you hear that word hypocrite, and of course it's a negative word that has negative meaning. But I think too many of us, we hold ourselves captive with that word hypocrite because we do something that's totally against what we teach. I've done it myself. Mm-hmm. And then when you do that, you feel like a failure.
Absolutely.
And then you don't release those emotions. You don't release that feeling. And then you don't forgive yourself. Mm-hmm. And then you want condemnation. And then that just kills you. And then next thing you know, you start believing, man, I am a hypocrite. I'm over here trying to change the world. And I yelled at my kids, like you said. And, I had a coaching session with one of my clients last week and we were talking about this. And I said, I got to tell you this. She's like, what? I was like, And I'm going to say right now, I don't care. It's like, I beat up the recycle bitch. She's like, what, coach? You beat up the recycle? I go, yeah. I go, just something hit me, and I was on the stock market, and something went down, and I was this like, the more you try to push an issue, or the more you try to push something, the more frustrated you're going to get. And I was relying on Daniel at that moment and trying to make something happen, which of course is never a good thing when I'm Daniel relying instead of God relying. So I got frustrated, and so I went outside just to clear my head, and then it just happened to be that the recycle bin was there. Yeah. So I got the recycle bin, and I just chunked it, right? And she goes, you did that? I'm like, yeah, I'm human. I mean, I have emotion. But I would rather do that than hold it in and be upset, because too many of us, especially men, we hold those emotions in, and you got to release them. And I'm not saying go throw stuff around your house. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying, hey, at that moment, I saw that recycle bin, and I just tossed it. And it just released all that anger and frustration towards myself, because I felt like a failure at that moment. Yeah. And next thing you know, I was good. Yeah. And I think talking to my client about that, she was like, you know, you made me feel so much better, because I was just beating myself for something I did. And I want the audience that's listening is, you're not a hypocrite. You're not a hypocrite if you make a mistake. Jenny's opening her heart right now. Thank you, Jenny, for opening up your heart and just dropping some bombs. And I hope you're taking lessons. So I want you to write this down as you're taking lessons on this episode of the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, is write down, you're not a hypocrite when you fail. You're not a hypocrite when you do something wrong. You're not a hypocrite. It's just a one-time incident that happens. We all go through that.
Right. And it's part of the human experience, right?
Yes. We put too much pressure on ourselves because of this, Jenny, because we open up Facebook, we open up Instagram, we open up all these social media platforms, and everybody is like, they paint the best pictures, right? They post one selfie, but it took them 10 times, 100 times to post that selfie. And it's never perfect, but they put the persona that everything's perfect, and it's not. Right. So thank you for saying the H word, because I think right now I want people to know that Jenny opened up her heart and how she got home and she reacted to this situation to her daughters. Mm-hmm. But Jenny, that doesn't make you a hypocrite. And I love that you said that, because we're all going to fall and stumble. Now, what comes to mind right now is that the quote that Abraham Lincoln said this is, I'm not worried that you fell down. I'm more worried that you're going to arise. So the question is, how many times are you going to arise from your failures? How many times are you going to arise that you think and see yourself as a hypocrite, because you're not a hypocrite? So thank you for sharing your wisdom there, Jen.
Yeah. No, and you asked me what I learned, right? And I want everyone to know, I never call myself an expert, right? I never tell anyone I know everything on mental health or on wellness, but I know what it feels like to be desperate to feel better. And I am constantly looking for ways to work on that. And I mean, I pour myself into it. And one of those avenues really has been by engaging my children in the process and talking through things with them and taking ownership and accountability for my behavior. So, you know, when I exploded and I melted down and both of my children like, whoa, like, who is this person? And even that night, I really was not in a place to receive them and be who I wanted to be. And they both came to me and told me they loved me, and then very quickly parted away from me. But I gave myself space and time to forgive myself, to, as you said, Daniel, earlier, when we rely on ourselves to get through difficult situations, most times it's going to get more difficult, right? Like, we really do have to turn to that higher power and to the people in our lives who love us, and really focus on that love so we can be our best selves. And the next morning, I just, you know, like I said, I went to them together, and I very humbly apologized for my behavior. And not once did I say to them, I acted this way and I'm sorry, but really you needed to do different. No, it doesn't matter what they did or didn't do. I'm going to take ownership for my behavior and say that it is not dependent on the situation around me. I never want to act that way. But I also recognize I am human and I have limits, and I was exhausted emotionally, spiritually, physically. I was run down. And instead of taking time to take care of myself, I pushed myself harder. And I think we do that often. We don't pay attention to our mind, body, spirit and take care of ourselves, which then puts us in a position to be at risk to fail.
Yes. And I think you hit it right on the hammer on the nail, like head. So many times we hear hustle and grind, hustle and grind. And I disagree with that 120% because this is my answer to that. Because you hear all these wannabe influencers say, yeah, you got to hustle and grind, hustle and grind. First of all, grinding doesn't even sound like something that I want to do, right? Grinding sounds like,
maybe when I was 20.
Right?
Yeah.
So they're like, well, you got to grind. I'm like, yeah, you have to work hard. I agree with that. But this is my answer to that, Jenny. A little is a lot with God.
Mm-hmm.
Let me say it again. A little is a lot with God. And the moment you realize that is a moment that he goes and multiplies your efforts. And I'll never forget, I was at home one morning and my great friend, actually you met Tina Holtz from the women's conference. She texted me, she goes, hey, I felt like I needed to text you this. I'm like, what is it, right? Awesome. And it said, one touch of God's favor is worth more than a lifetime of labor.
Wow.
One touch of God's favor is worth more than a lifetime of labor.
Yeah.
And the moment you realize that, it releases all the stress because you know that it's not just Jenny, it's not just Daniel that has to push, because that's when you're being Jenny reliant and Daniel reliant. And the moment you're God reliant, that's when all the stress goes away. And I'm like, well, God, you know what I need. I trust you. I'm still going to work hard. I'm still going to do what I need to do. Be diligent. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying I don't have to grind and burn myself out and work 25 hours a day, 16 hours a day. You don't have to do that. So let me ask you, Jenny, what are some of your convictions? What does Jenny Landon stand for? And what, like, is that conviction that you really want people to know about who you are?
Well, I think I kind of mentioned it at the beginning, and I'll say it again. For me, it's love. Absolutely, 100%. I think that just like we're all born with different talents that rise to the surface, I think we also we're born with certain passions. And for a long time, people have said to me, like, wow, you're so passionate about mental health. You're so passionate about suicide prevention. I'm like, yeah, that's my passion, right? But I'm also really passionate about some other things. And when I started thinking about all the things I'm passionate about, at the core, what I'm passionate about is love, helping people to feel loved, helping people to give love, and can you imagine being in a world where we just simply tell people, I love you, and not worry how they're going to respond, not worry if they're going to say it back, but that if we were expressing that kind of emotion because we simply felt it and weren't afraid of any kind of consequence, it would just be so much more peaceful, so much more exciting. But I tell people I meet that, they could be walking up to me, but it's the energy they have, it's their presence, and I just know, and I have no problem saying, like, I love you, or I love your smile. But I think the more positive energy we can put out there, the better the world we're going to live in for ourselves and for those around us.
So we're coming towards the last 5-10 minutes of our show, and I want to ask you, what makes Jenny Landon distinctive? What makes her unique? The Distinctive Syndicate, our community here I really want people to know that, hey, you matter. Yeah. The moment you start to fit in, you matter. So what makes Jenny Landon distinctive? We want to know that. Tell the world.
Okay, so I'm going to...
Now, we were a little bit sad, but now it's time to get that. Come on, because I've seen you rock the stage, so don't hold back on this, right? Like I said, you spoke at our women's conference, and everybody was like, "Who is this Jenny Landon?" Like, whoa!
That was so much fun.
Right? How does that feel?
Okay, so here's what it is. I'm going to tell you. So you guys, if you're watching, you know that I'm sitting. If you are listening, you have no idea what I look like. I am 6 feet tall. And I would say that what makes me distinct isn't that I'm 6 feet tall. It is that I'm 6 feet tall and I love to wear high heels. I love it. I love to walk into a space with high heels. And I didn't always. I used to be exactly what you said, Daniel. I used to try to fit in, and I used to try to make myself smaller than I needed to be. And then I realized I'm going to have tall daughters and I want them to own who they are 100%. And so I started wearing high heels all the time. And my business partner, he's told me, he's like, I want my high heels. Like, what's my high heels going to be? Because when I have on my high heels, I walk into a room like I own it. It is my space. And I think one of the other things that makes me very distinctive is that I could talk about mental health and I could talk about what most people consider to be a very dark and depressing topic. I could talk about it all day, every day. You can ask my family. They're like, okay, like we move on. But the difference is I don't talk about it from this place of sadness and depression. I truly talk about it from a place of love and wellness, and that these are opportunities for us to grow and to recognize that our greatest gifts can come from our greatest struggles.
Wow, that's powerful. So what's a superpower that Jenny has? Tell us one of your superpowers that you have.
Gosh darn.
I caught you on that one, right?
I know. Well, because I'm like, I've already told you love how many times. No, but it's going to be related to that. It's that I will. This is another one I kind of get made fun of for is my superpower would be that I trust that voice inside of me. And I will talk to complete strangers in a way that most people would never anticipate. And it often times happens at airports and on airplanes and in like the weirdest places. But I grew up very quiet, very shy. I was almost mute, right? Like I did not speak in public for most of my childhood. And then I discovered my voice when I was 16, 17. I was going into my senior year of high school. I discovered my voice, but it was from a place of anger and bitterness and frustration. And I'm going to right all the wrongs in the world. And I'm going to be very loud and vocal about it. And everyone's going to know my fury. And again, it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I learned that that's not how you make a difference, you know? And so I learned to really listen to that inner voice and start reaching out to people in ways that was about connecting. It was about finding what do we have in common and how can we support one another? And everyone has a story. And I think most people, if not everyone, they want to be heard. They want to be seen. And so I take every moment I can to embrace those people, those unexpected moments.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for just sharing your wisdom today. You've been an amazing guest, and I just love your authenticity, your heart. It's amazing. And so we're at the point of our episode here, the Daniel Gomes Inspired Show, where I love to have my guests give us a word of wisdom or a quote that has carried you through during these challenging times or your hard times in your life. Give us a quote or a word of wisdom and leave us with that if you don't mind, Jenny.
You know what? Rather than giving you a quote or wisdom, I'm going to give you a question. So this actually was a question that came to me while meditating one day during this pandemic and during a time when I was struggling. And I actually have this giant dry erase board over here on my wall. And the question is, what do you want out of this life? Before you answer it, I want you to recognize that you do not have control of the people, the place, or the things. I want you to think about what do you want out of this life, focusing on what are the experiences you want to have.
That's a great question. I hope the audience, you need to write that down. Can you repeat that one more time if you don't mind? That's a great question.
What do you want out of this life? Recognizing you don't have control of the people, place, or things. You only have control over what you experience.
I love that, man. That's just a word. That's a question. I always go back to what I teach my clients, right? The quality of your life is the quality of the questions you ask yourself.
Yeah.
And that's a powerful question to ask yourself. And your subconscious mind, your own intellectual thinking is going to answer that. Maybe not today, but I want you to wake up and be like, hey, I answered Jenny's question. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. And it changes when you aren't focused on the people, place, or things. It opens you up. Right? Because I think sometimes when you say, what do I want out of this life? Well, I want to be married to my husband until I die. Well, guess what? That might not happen. I don't know. Or or I want to live in Arizona. Like that's my dream is to live in Arizona. Well, I don't know if that's going to happen. But when I made it about what I want is connection, passion, love. And when I first started answering that question, it was all positive stuff. And then I realized, no, I also want struggle. But I want to be able to move through that struggle with grace, right? And with pride. That's what we have to focus on.
You've been an amazing guest. I'm gonna have to bring you back for part 2. Wow. So we have so tell the audience, because I know people are gonna want to connect with you after hearing this episode on iTunes and Spotify and iHeart. Where can they find Miss Jenny Landon?
So please visit the website at growingoutofdarkness.org. We do have a Facebook page, an Instagram page. I'm terrible about social media. Because it kind of goes against what I believe in. I like face-to-face personal connections. And you're right, Daniel. I think sometimes we get sucked into that social media and it's can take us to a dark place. So I would say the best way to connect with me is through the website, growingoutofdarkness.org. All my contact information is on there. You can also learn about the new programs that we're creating that really touch on the human experience and how we move through this life, loving what we're doing and who we are.
Awesome, man. Well, what a show we had this week. I'm just excited. I'm grateful to have you once again. And to our listening audience right now, if you want to get some more valuable content like this, please join our Facebook group, Distinctive Syndicate. We're going to there's a lot of great, just positive people that really inspire you, encourage you, and just it's going to build you up, right? It's a community to help each other out, because when you lift others up, life is easier. So go to Facebook, look up Distinctive Syndicate, and just ask to join the group. And we definitely want to welcome people who are like-minded and really want to improve their life and just grow in every aspect in life and in business. So that's a wrap for this week's show. We'll see you next week here on the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. This is Daniel Gomez, and thank you so much for tuning into our show today. We'd love your feedback. Please drop us a comment, and thank you for leaving us a review. Don't forget to subscribe to our show and share this episode with a friend. And my free gift for listening to our show today is a copy of my best-selling book, You Were Born to Fly. To get your free copy, go to DanielGomezInspires.com and get your copy today. That's DanielGomezInspires.com. And to elevate your life and business even more, follow me on social media at Daniel Gomez Inspires on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence.